Stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. We'll start with approval of minutes of the meeting held September 14th, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to persons wishing to address the school board. We have 2 people on agenda topics. And when you come up to the podium, you'll each get 5 minutes. And Carly here will notify you when you have like 1 minute left and then when you have 30 seconds left, just so you can kind of have a countdown. And if you'll say your name and address when you approach the microphone. Troy Laggy, am I saying that correctly? Thank you. Thank you. If you would please first come up and speak. Thank you. Yep.
And this might be against it too. Can my wife join me or not?
Oh, they moved it. It's up here though. That's how it's still up here. We moved it up here. So it's supposed to be right up here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, you may take off. We had another question about procedure. Sorry.
May his wife join him?
Yeah, if you would like to. Okay. Are you going to combine your two?
Yes.
She did
we'll
sign up as well.
5-minute
so what? We have 2 people who signed up. 10 minutes total then for the 2 of you, and then she'll do the same thing. She'll just do 1 minute left and 30 seconds when you come up there. So yeah.
Yeah, she can join on the same 5 minutes.
Awesome.
I don't think it's going to take us that long. So Troy and Shauna Laggy, 4309 East Fountain Circle, 57103, Sioux Falls here. The reason that we're here to talk to you guys today is just to kind of find out where your position's at on the close contact. So
during public input, you just state to us what you want us to
That's
state.
it?
And then when on return to, so state what you're interested in, what your positions are and so forth.
Okay.
And then when we get to the return to learn report where that type of information will be on the agenda, that's when we'll address and ask questions of admins and you'll get more feelings about our input.
Another time?
Yep.
Another date?
Yeah.
No, later today.
Later today.
Later today.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an agenda item later.
Yeah.
Confusing.
So it's not really a question and answer type of thing. It's more like you give us what, and
So,
this is not going against your time, by the way, since you asked that question.
All
So,
right.
yeah. Thank you.
So our position is trying to look at this. We just had a son that just went back to school today from being close contacted, 4 feet apart, dual masks in a school setting. And he's a very bright student, so his education's not going to be terribly impacted other than he has to be self-motivated. But we're seeing it more and more where there's quite a few kids that are being out due to close contact. And some of the kids that are on the bubble, right, of either continuing on school or not, they're probably going to not, and they're not getting an education at all when they're out 14 days, most likely. So we just have a major concern with the policy in place right now, where it's close contact, 14-day quarantine, no test out. It's just a straight 14 days. And we're seeing other schools and states doing some switching, and we understand where it was implemented to begin with, which needed to be there because we didn't have enough information. And I feel like we have enough information that I would say is, in my opinion, or our opinion, public knowledge for the information, where we just can't get the DOH to give us anything. Right? We've been searching and looking and calling and trying to find any type of information on close contact coming out of the DOH with any type of numbers, other than speaking to some of the principals and teachers and saying there's really not a lot.
And I think what we do know.
If you come to the mic,
yes.
We have people watching, so they can hear you.
Yeah, and I think what we do know is that mask to mask is the best way to prevent this COVID from spreading. So that has been shown. And so I'm just wondering what kind of a message that we're giving to our kids when we have them wearing masks every day and following through with that, and yet turning around and sending them home because they've been exposed to somebody else that also has this mask on that is supposedly supposed to protect them. I've even seen some statistics that show that mask to mask is better than most vaccines that come out. And so I'm just, this message that we're telling our kids and educating them, and then we're turning around and sending them home when they're doing everything that we've asked them to do. And then a lot of these kids, here again, we aren't getting the statistics, but I've talked to a lot of people, and I would say 9 out of 10 people that I've talked to have said their kids have been asymptomatic the whole entire time they've been quarantined. And so the psychology behind that for a student saying, I'm doing everything I can do, and we all know that we all have some anxieties with this and some unknowns with this whole COVID, this whole pandemic. We each deal with that differently. But when you take a young person and they're listening to the adults, they're listening to what the media is saying, and they say, we're doing everything we can do, yet here I'm being sent home. And then that, in addition to being isolated and not being able to be with their peers, not being involved in the extracurricular activities, has been shown, and I don't know what the statistics are, but has been shown that that is mentally really, really hard on the kids. I mean, I know that they've talked about a lot of kids, the rate of suicide, depression, and anxiety. They've actually have measured some of that, and there again, I don't have statistics, but I have been reading on it, and it's saying that that is increasing due to the isolation, which I think most of us know that set the pandemic aside, just being isolated in itself can cause that. So the combination of the two, I'm very concerned about.
I think that a little bit more concern is big concern for us in the high schools, especially. It's kind of impossible to make sure that the kids are 6 feet apart for 15 minutes in every classroom. But we've got a son now that today, what if he sits down again, and now he's out another 14 days? And he comes back and he's out another 14 days. And we just had a couple friend that we know that their son, it was at Sioux Falls Christian, where he was due back and close contacted again today, but their policy just changed, so now it's parental discretion to let him go back. Otherwise, he'd be out again. So that's just kind of the take that we're at is we feel like there's enough information, knowledge to make a change, not just a simple change to allow, you can still require or recommend the 14-day, and I think half the parents would probably still do it. But then it's up to parental discretion on letting their child come back if they choose to do such, knowing that it was a mass-to-mass close contact.
I guess just another thing to add to that is that that age group too, it's also been shown that the way that their bodies react to it is much more mild than like an elderly person or a person with a compromised immune system. And so I think when we're taking all the kids, a big group of kids, and we're saying that you can't have your education, I mean, you can't be in education right now because you may have some mild symptoms, which normally if this pandemic wasn't going on, they would just go about their day. They would go out, they would go to school, do their extracurricular activities with the stuffy nose, with a little bit of a headache. But there are those people, and I'm not saying it with disrespect to them. My parents are in that situation, being elderly and having compromised immune systems. But I do think that there are things in place for that group of people. There's a lot of stores. Our community has been great about, I know there's stores that have set aside an hour or two in the morning just for those people so that they can go and do that. Those people also are aware of the mask to mask, how much that helps, and that would be very, very important for them to have their mask on whenever they're out in public, and to keep that distance. And those people, most of those people are very aware of that. So I feel like we're catering to a huge number of people, including all this K through 12, versus the people that already know the things that they need to do to keep themselves safe, because they will suffer more or will be hospitalized, which isn't the case for our school-age kids.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Item 5, do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I have a first and a second, a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. On to the good news report.
Last month, Dr. Teresa Boyson shared with the school board a summary of the professional development that was provided to all employees leading up to the start of the school year. And last week, we got some really great news about some funding for another training that focuses on student and staff resiliency during tough times. Rather appropriate, I would say. Sarah Vining and Marta Roberts are school social workers. Thanks to funding from Sioux Falls Public Schools Education Foundation, they will be trained in the community resiliency model. which they in turn will teach to other staff for them to use for themselves and their students. And did somebody have a report? Okay, thanks. Wasn't sure who was coming up to the mic.
Thank you, Dr. Staven, for that introduction. As she said, I'm Sarah Vining, and this is Marta Roberts. We're two social workers in the district, and we received funding to become certified in the community resilience model, and that focuses on how our mental health is connected to our body's nervous system. So it's all one thing, it's not two separate things. And it'll teach us skills to decrease anxiety that are caused by trauma and chronic stress, and then we'll come back, as she said, and teach that within the district. We're so thankful and excited that the Education Foundation and the Sioux Falls School District are coming alongside us in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great, and yes, what a great partner Sioux Falls Education Foundation is with the district. I appreciate them funding this, and thank you for you guys stepping up to do this and helping the whole district out.
Yeah, very timely, as Dr. Staven said. I mean, I think everyone's feeling a little bit of stress and anxiety during this time. So the more support we can give our students and even families, I think is great. So thank you for doing this.
On to conflicts of interest. There were no new conflicts presented, so we'll move on. Approval of the consent agenda, items 8A through H. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That carries. On to supplemental consent agenda. We'll go with 9A first, claims to Sanford Medical Center. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with 2 abstentions from Board Member Ryder and Board Member Mickelson. On to 9B 1 and 2, claims to Avera Healthcare. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and 2 seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with 1 abstention from Board Member Parker. On to reports to the superintendent.
For our first report,
For our first report tonight, Kristen Griniger is going to tell us about some of our latest statistics with our AP placements and some of the good news that we have related to our AP courses and the tests that kids take from those courses.
Good evening. The Advanced Placement Program is available to high school students interested in college preparatory coursework that is academically rigorous and rich in content. At the conclusion of the course, students who are taking AP classes have the option of taking the AP exam designed by the College Board. Test results are reported on a scale of 1 to 5, and students must achieve a score of 3 or higher in order for the course to be considered for college credit. During the 1920 school year, students selected AP classes in the areas of English, math, social studies, science, fine arts, and world language from a list of 30 options. In the 2019-20 school year, 2,596 AP exams were taken by 1,437 students. Students are encouraged to take at least 1 AP exam during their high school career. AP courses may be taken by students in grades 9 through 12. Chart A shows the number of exams taken by 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students. All students are encouraged to take at least 1 AP exam while in high school, and many students take more than 1 AP exam each year. Chart B shows the number of students who took 2 or more exams the past 4 years. Students who are enrolled in an AP course are encouraged to take the AP exam at the end of the school year. Chart C shows the number of AP course registrations compared to the number of exams that were taken in those courses. Keep in mind that individual students may represent multiple course registrations. Over the past 4 years, at least 90% or more of the course exams were taken by students. One of the goals of the AP District Committee is to continue to work to see an increase in the number of exams taken by minority students. Chart D shows the number of exams disaggregated by race. This year was a little bit different. Due to COVID, students took AP exams online at home. The format of some of the exams were changed, and across the country, some students experienced technical difficulties and had to retake exams online at home in June. However, students in the Sioux Falls School District still did very well on courses. Table 1, oops, sorry, my slideshow has gotten ahead of me, shows the 2020 exam scoring results. And so if you take a look at each test in the chart, you can see that students did very well, with many of the students scoring 3 or higher. In fact, chart E shows the number of exams taken in the past 4 years and the number of exams that scored a 3 or higher. During the 2019-20 school year, 2,596 exams were taken and 1,812 received a passing score of 3 or higher. That equivalent, there we go, that equals 70% of AP exams that scored a 3 or higher by students in the Sioux Falls School District. Sioux Falls continues to outpace both state and national averages. The pass rate for the Sioux Falls School District was 70%, for the state of South Dakota was 69%, and the global percentage was 61%. In addition to a stellar pass rate, students in our district continue to be recognized. The College Board recognized 418 District AP Scholar Award winners in 2020. 192 received the AP Scholar Award, which means they received a score of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams. 73 received the AP Scholar Award with honors. This is given to students who receive an average score of 3.25 or higher on, and a score of 3 on 4 or more of these exams. 153 received the AP Scholar with distinction. These students scored at least 3.5 on all AP exams taken and scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more AP exams. 24 students received the AP National Scholar Award. These students received an average score of at least 4 on all AP exams taken and scores of 4 or higher on 8 or more AP exams. And this year we had a new award that was given. If you remember, a couple of years ago, we added the Capstone program, which is a 2-year commitment for students. And so last year was the 2nd year, and 4 of our students received the AP Capstone Diploma. These students scored 3 or higher in AP Seminar and AP Research, and additional 4 AP exams of their choosing. Each year, the District AP Committee meets and makes recommendations for continued excellence in the program. The goals of the committee are to continue the promotion of the AP program and strive for balance between the growing number of students taking AP exams and their performance. The incentive budget for the advanced placement program was $122,330. Administrators receive a building allocation. This is based on the number of students enrolled the number of students who take the test, and the number of students who receive a passing score. The incentive budget provides $65 per student scoring 3 or higher on the exams. This money is used traditionally for conferences and professional development. This year it's being used for classroom materials to enhance the course, for student help sessions, and for costs to facilitate the exam. In 2020, the cost of the exams was $93 per test. Students with financial need qualify for taking the AP exam at no cost through guidelines of the College Board and the South Dakota Department of Education. The district also subsidizes the fees for the students who have a financial need but do not meet the qualifying guidelines according to College Board. This year, 253 tests for 140 students qualified for fee reduction through College Board. The Advanced Placement Program provides opportunities for students to engage in rigorous college preparatory coursework. During the 1920 school year, 1,437 students took AP exams in a variety of courses, received AP Scholar Awards, and we had 1,812 exams score a 3 or higher. Sioux Falls continues to outpace both the state and national average. Are there any questions regarding this report?
Thank you so much. I think it's interesting to know, because I was curious about this, just having students in the district, and now that we're dispersing students to different buildings through our change in boundaries and the new buildings opening, how the different courses are in each building. They're all offered except for Latin. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But it depends on if there's interest in that building. And so like a student might be the only one that wants computer science AP, I'm just thinking. So it'd be great if we could examine as a district offering, now that we're getting more comfortable with online options, that if I'm the only one at LHS that wants to take AP computer science, but it's at Washington, could I do that, and vice versa? And just to help, especially I know students were always concerned about Jefferson being the new school. Are they gonna have the same course offerings?
So Jefferson will have the AP course offerings that everyone else has, except for Latin. That is only at Lincoln. And we have had a situation a couple of years ago where there were a couple of students at Washington High School who wanted to take an AP computer class. And because the numbers were low, they joined the Roosevelt AP computer class. So we work really hard to give students all the AP opportunities that we can.
I had a student in an AP class last year, and I can attest that the teachers worked very, very hard. You know, it seems like forever ago that happened, but when we all of a sudden had the entire last quarter of material to cover and prep, review for the classes, it would have been easy to just use that as an excuse to not have good scores. And I guess I felt like the teachers worked really hard at engaging the students and preparing them. And then, you know, again, taking the tests at home was very strange. My daughter took the Spanish one, and so she's like talking into her phone, and, you know, it was like 30 minutes long instead of something, you know, a lot longer than that. So it was a test in a different way. It was new for the kids. It was new for the teachers, but I thought that they all responded very well. We're very supportive of our students who are also in a whole new environment. My daughter had never taken an AP class, so didn't really know what to expect, and I don't think she still does because that was so different.
It was different.
Kudos to the staff who really stuck in there and knew that it mattered to those kids, and kudos to the students who knew that it mattered to them too, and that there was a prize at the end for being proud of themselves for that work, and hopefully maybe some college credit when they get there post-secondary as well. So great results considering the situation that we found ourselves in.
Yeah.
So
we're lucky we have fabulous staff and fabulous students in the Sioux Falls School District. I agree.
Anything else? Do you have a motion to acknowledge the results from the district's 2020 Advanced Placement Report?
Move to acknowledge.
Second.
Got a motion second. All those in favor of acknowledgements signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. We acknowledge. Thank you.
I
have to acknowledge Mrs. Grenager because I butchered her last name and I even know it. But she also has the dubious distinction, I think it was week 1, that she gave me a driving tour of all the secondary schools. So we had our bonding moment early, and it was much appreciated. She's done great work with our high school curriculum. Well, I thought it's end of September, and I should have my own trip to the podium. And so tonight I'm going to give you just a brief report on a Return to Learn plan and do it here so that we can see each other. Just a few different points that we want to make tonight. First of all, I want to say congratulations to our entire district. Our student and our staff have been absolute rock stars, wearing masks, washing hands, following all of the protocols that we have. Would you see 100% of people in masks? No, but would you see very, very close to it? Absolutely. We expected them to wear masks, and they stepped up, and they have done that very, very well. You'll see a video, chunks of it coming out over the next few weeks. We did an interview with students last week, and one of our high school students said it's become like her security blanket. She said, if I forget it in the car, I have to run out because now I kind of feel like I'm naked without it. And so, you know, it becomes habit. Kids get used to it. They've been very resilient, and staff have done a great job. So let me give you just a current update kind of right now on our positive cases and on some quarantine cases, because I know we're all thinking about that. So as of right now, we have very, very low numbers of people who have actually tested positive for COVID. Our students right now are at 0.11% of our student population, and our staff is at 0.37%. We have more numbers of people, however, who have been determined to be close contacts and so are out on quarantine, the 14-day quarantine that our guests spoke about earlier. As of right now, about 5.2% of our students are out on quarantine, and about 1.47% of our staff are out on quarantine. Since the beginning of the school year, we don't have any hospitalizations that we're aware of as we've followed up with people. I believe that's true. There might be an outlier that we're not aware of, but I know one of the thoughts out there about things in our community is after schools have started, that there's an uptick in COVID numbers due to school, and that hasn't been our experience as a school district. Not to say that people, when they have it, may not be ill, but have not required hospitalization. Our central purpose is to educate students in our classrooms, and our goal is to continue to maintain our regular schedules. That's why we have our green, yellow, red system to indicate when we have made a variation to that schedule. So far, the only variation that we've needed to make is that green, yellow, or green level 2, where there's been an alteration in a classroom, but we are far, far away from needing to alter things at a school level schedule. So we're very, very pleased about that. And we've really had a great deal of fidelity with our practices, but our goal, of course, is to make sure that as October comes and November and December, that we continue to have people who are wearing masks, following those protocols, taking care of themselves outside of school as well as inside of school, and really making sure that over time we're trying to do all of the things that keep those numbers low. We are concerned about lost classroom time. And we have also heard from parents and teachers about the issues of repeated quarantines for people who are asymptomatic and are missing instruction. When our core purpose is teaching kids, teaching and learning, it hurts our hearts. It hurts us to know that kids are missing out. They may be able to be online, they have assignments posted, but that is not the same as being in a classroom. We're also concerned about our teachers and our ongoing need to support students who are learning from home when they could possibly be in the classroom, when they are asymptomatic. We know that that adds a heavier load. It's enough to have 20-some kids in front of you, and then to have some of them who may be over here trying to tune in, or they're taping lessons, or doing any number of things, checking in with kids. That gets to be a lot depending on numbers and just what it is you're teaching. If kids have a lot to read, if they're in an English class, that can be a lot. If you're doing math or high-level math, interacting around those things that really take a lot of effort to stay on top of, it becomes very difficult. We know that there are other states and our districts who are revising guidance related to quarantine duration. We know that we've seen that near our community, and we've also seen it in states nearby. We are also extending our current practice, just as a notification to the board, of excluding visitors and outside groups from using our facilities, probably through the end of this first semester, and then we'll reevaluate it just like we said we would in our plan. We know that people are anxious to be serving in our schools and using our facilities, but we really are trying to limit that outside contact as much as possible. Part of that is cleaning protocols. Part of that is what we've learned about contact tracing and the time and effort that that takes, and just wanting to preserve staff and workload as much as possible. Again, that hurts our hearts to say that because we are public schools, we are a public school district. We value people coming to us and supporting us. We value people using our facilities. And so we hope that people will understand that during this time of a pandemic, that's just one of the ways that we can continue to kind of keep a lid on things and to just really control that environment. So that is my update on our Return to Learn plan. I'd be happy to entertain any questions or any discussion that the board wants to have.
You know, it's interesting with we're about 1 month into school, so it's good for us to have this data to know how it has affected, because we didn't know once we opened our doors really what was going to happen. And now that we see with the Department of Ed having changed the language that it's recommendations versus strict guidelines for the Department of Health, and looking at what the state of Nebraska and the state of Wyoming has done, it's interesting to see. And they based that, I believe, in Wyoming on their Department of Health did a study for a month in the schools in Wyoming on if there was spread within those schools. It would be great if our state had done that. They haven't done that yet, but it would be, I would love to see if we could, as a district, look at drafting some revised language on the quarantine for students and staff on that, and basically have a vote on that is probably Wednesday after our Southeast Tech board meeting, which would be around 5 p.m. Wednesday. If we could have language by Tuesday posted for the public so that we could have input on that. I just feel like it's time. We've had enough information now to do that we can maybe look at this point now.
Yeah, I guess I'm comfortable at this point with, I've heard from enough, both teachers and parents, and since we're doing such a great job following the protocol, I think it's time for us to keep educating kids like we're supposed to, and maybe look at making a change. And I think sooner rather than later would be the best. Then we can get a little bit of public input, and if for some reason it's not effective, then we can always revert back. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, sure.
So I really don't see why we can't.
I think we've said from the get-go that this was going to be a living, breathing document. I mean, we would continue to review it because this was uncharted territory for us when we opened our building. So I think that, absolutely, let's take a look at this. We've all heard from people. Some of us have actually experienced this personally with our own children, being out on quarantine. So, we've seen both ends of it, and we've heard from parents and from staff as well. So I think we've tried to communicate that we are going to be as nimble as we can. And I think, I would support a language change as well. And I think, President Mickelson, what you were proposing is that we hold a special meeting on Wednesday to approve any changes to the language. We don't have a meeting on Wednesday, but we would hold a special meeting.
Exactly, yeah. And we're already here for Southeast Tech, so I thought the availability of board members would be there, and it will be after work for for parents and community members and staff who would like to voice their input at that time too as well.
From the beginning, we said we wanted to use that local data-driven approach to ultimately affect the policies that we put in place, and that we want to operate in learning modules that keep students and staff safe. And part of that safety is also their social, emotional, psychological well-being, as well as their ability to to be in the classroom to the extent possible and to participate in activities. So to the extent that we can look at language that continues to support that, given that the data, that seems to be in the best interest of the overall strategic plan for the school district. So glad we're gonna move forward on that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we haven't talked about, we definitely are here as educators and we want our kids in school, and good or bad, the schools for many of our students serve much more of a purpose than just an education as well. For many people, it's supervision. For many people, it's a meal. It's a warm place, it's shelter. And so I think as much as we want our people to be safe from COVID, we also want them to be safe from other things that may be going on outside of school. And so for those asymptomatic kids who are sitting at home, maybe unsupervised, maybe without a meal, I think it's important that we continue their education and we continue to feed them in many ways while they're in our buildings. And so I am very supportive of this, and like you guys have said, we're going to keep watching it. This isn't a move and then, yay, we won. I mean, there's none of that. And so it's going to be a continual, every week, every day, we're going to look at numbers. And if we see that there's something that's growing, then we're going to backpedal and we're going to go back to say, our staff are very important to us. Our students are very important to us, and we need people to be safe and healthy. And so what can we do to help mitigate that? So I think in doing that, it's important for our families to continue to manage those symptoms at home. And if you know that your child has a sore throat or a headache or those other symptoms, please keep them home so that you can keep the rest of them safe. Students, my kids are telling me that their classmates are doing awesome at wearing masks. And so keep doing that. There's definitely a fatigue. As a nurse, I can tell you there's a fatigue of wearing that. Thankfully, we have a 4-day weekend coming up. And so students will have, some extra time with that. It's still nice out, so people are outside. I know we've seen some great things about classrooms getting outside and doing things. And so as much as we can try to continue those things, but really that mask and that good hand hygiene is going to be what keeps all of our students in school the longest that we can. So kudos to staff and kudos to students and families who are really working hard. And so it's because of your efforts that we're even able to have this conversation today. Mm-hmm. If we had started out as some of the other districts in Sioux Falls are in South Dakota with a recommendation, or we'd really like you to, I don't know that we'd be at the same place. We might be at where they're not having school and it's online. But because of the commitment of our community and our staff, we can have this conversation and make an adjustment that really is going to benefit our students and our community.
Yeah. And it's very interesting to talk with students, and we always have to remember to hear their voice in this, and they are very smart. And the comment made earlier is exactly what we heard from kids, is they need the why. Why am I wearing the mask? And we know that it's a protective measure. We know that. But students are not able to always make that connection when they've done what we've asked them to do, and yet then still there was this big missing chunk of their learning. So I think we at least have to acknowledge that. The board can receive feedback and make that final decision, but I think we have to keep talking with our kids. We also, like I said, have to look at the long play, and we want the most people doing the most right things over the longest period of time. And I think this is something to consider, at least in terms of kids' abilities to withstand that fatigue over time, as well as staff. And to see how things go. You can receive feedback. If people want to provide feedback, we have our Let's Talk button on the website. People can go there to share feedback, and that's one way to make sure that it all comes to a place that can be visible to all of us. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, that's all I have.
So we're going to review this language on Wednesday.
Yes.
Great.
We'll provide a draft to the board that would indicate a revision to the 14-day quarantine language. And just as a reminder to our public, what we said we would do if there was a substantive change in the return to learn plan, we would bring that back to the board to be amended. So that's why it would come back to the board for a vote. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 11, the second reading of the Sioux Falls School District Policy on Ihbf. Carly.
All right, so in an effort to keep the policies up to date, members of the administration and the policy review committee will look at policies and regulations that need to be added, deleted, revised, or update language. So today we have one that's coming back for second reading, and that is policy Ihbf, General Education of Homebound Students. We have had this posted for the last 30-ish days, have not received any feedback. Basically, the gist is that we added a virtual option for students who may be homebound so that it wouldn't, if they were contagious or something like that, and because we have now have other options using virtual platforms, that it would allow student or staff or support people other means of connecting with those students besides just physically going to their home. So that was the main change to this. So with no feedback, no objections, I guess I would offer a motion to approve the second reading of policy Ihbf, General Education Homebound Services.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the revised policy Ihbf signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay. We also have two policies that are up for first reading. The first one is BEDH, Public Participation at School Board Meetings. Update language to combine public input on agenda and non-agenda items. And so that is our first reading, so it will be out there for the next 30 days. And you can see the attachments that have the updated, I was going to say red line, but it's green lined, through the changes that were made. So really it's just a matter of kind of changing how we receive public input. We're not removing it, we're not reducing it, we're just changing the location of how that's done on the agenda. And then the second one that is also up for first reading is JCA and its accompanying regulation, assignment of students to schools, open enrollment and non-resident assigning students to schools and specialized programs, and also adding a placement option for children of staff members residing in the district. This policy initially came to light as far as the discussion on it as we were going through our boundary process, and we received some questions about why students went to certain schools. And so we had kind of during that process said we weren't going to address it during the boundary process, but we would bring that back to the board and to the policy committee to review and come back with some addendums to that. And so here we are at this point. And so I'll just point out a few of the highlights of that for people. It is long and there's a lot of information, so please do check it out. One of the things that I think a lot of people will be excited about is that we do have intentions of launching an online application system this fall. And so for those of you who have ever stood freezing in the parking lot overnight to try to fill out your application, I'm sorry to take that experience from you, but you can now do it from the comfort of your phone, your home, wherever it might be. So more details to come on that specifically. In addition, we are making updates to building capacities to accommodate the new buildings that we'll be bringing online. So we had to increase those capacities over the last couple of years in order to have places for our students to go. And now that we're thankfully at a point where we get to open 2 new buildings next fall, we were able to adjust those capacities to reflect that. Another one is regarding specialized schools. There was a lot of conversation about this one during the boundary process. And so the conversation that we had and the decision that was made was that enrollment through the would be through a program duration. So when that program, the special programming ended for whatever that program might be, whether it's honors or ACE or Spanish immersion or 2A immersion, that when that program ended, then your assignment or your enrollment in that school would also end, and you would by default go back to your home attendance area. You always have the option to apply for open enrollment. That's not being taken away. It's just that when that program ends, your enrollment would end as well. And then finally, a new option that has been added is placement of staff children. And so if you're interested in that, there's a clause in there regarding placement of people who will work for our district that maybe for convenience purposes would like to have their child for transportation reasons go to the same school, the same building that they work at. There is some new language in there for that. So those are kind of the highlights. Obviously, there's a lot of information in there, so we do encourage people to read through that. Again, provide us feedback. You can use the Let's Talk feature that Dr. Stava mentioned to provide feedback on that as well, or any of us as board members are happy to entertain any of your questions or ideas. So this, both of these two are first reading, which means that they will come back again in 2 meetings. Sorry about the day, end of October. And then that will be the second reading. Again, you can provide feedback at that meeting too. We would like to get your feedback prior to that because we typically will vote that night. So if you have specific feedback that you would like us to consider, please get that to us so we could consider that and see if it kind of fits into the policy as we have drafted. So with that, I would make a motion to acknowledge the first reading of the 2 policies, BEDH and JCA, and the accompanying regulation for first reading today.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I just would like to thank Carly and Kate serve on the policy committee, and this was a lot of work, especially on the open enrollment piece of this. So thank you to the entire policy committee for that work on getting this done so that we can keep moving down the track till December 1st when open enrollment opens so that we can have this policy in place. And thank you. I think the staff added feature is a nice, something we can help with our staff in the non-programmed buildings to allow their children to attend in that building.
Where did we land on that as far as that run K through 12 staff placement?
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly certain the parents that sit in the parking lot in the cold with donuts and coffee are going to be very appreciative of the online.
Well, we're going to run a test run first, right, Jamie, to make sure it runs before the night of.
Yes, we do have a lot of meetings coming up to make sure that's
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bring us out of the dark ages. So
yes.
Thank you for that.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of acknowledging the first reading of the 2 new policies, JCAR and BEDH, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. The acknowledgement carries. And I believe that is it. Any other business for the good of the board?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? A motion second. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.